I didn't find out because he confessed. I found out because the truth slipped out, casually, like it never mattered at all. And in that moment, something inside me broke. My name is Hannah, and for a long time my life looked quiet, ordinary, safe, not perfect, not exciting. Just stable in a way that makes you stop questioning things. The kind of life you don't analyze too closely because nothing feels obviously wrong. We live just outside Manchester, in one of those neighborhoods where every house looks similar and the days blur together. 2 kids, a small garden, evenings that passed without memory, routine disguised as security. I was only a few months postpartum, and that matters more than people think. My body didn't feel like it belonged to me anymore. My emotions came without warning. Some days I cried for no reason. Other days I felt empty, like I was watching myself move through life from somewhere far away. Sleep was broken. My thoughts were foggy. My confidence felt thin. And in the middle of all that, I trusted Tom. He wasn't loud. He wasn't dramatic. He was calm in a way that made you feel grounded. The kind of man who didn't raise his voice, who seemed steady when everything else felt fragile. When he told me I was doing a good job, I believed him. I needed to believe him. That's why the first crack didn't feel dangerous. It felt insignificant. Tom told me he was working from home that Friday. I remember because the baby wouldn't settle, and my nerves felt stretched thin. I needed air. I needed to leave the house just long enough to feel like a person again. I was gone less than an hour. When I came back, the house felt the same. Quiet, familiar, safe. Nothing out of place. Tom was relaxed, scrolling on his phone, like he had been there all day. He said it had been a quiet day, just him at home, and I believed him. Why wouldn't I? 2 days later, at a family gathering, something slipped through the cracks. Someone mentioned a woman from Tom's office, a name I recognized but had never attached meaning to. The way it was said was casual, light, like it was obvious. I laughed automatically, that reflex you have when your brain hasn't caught up yet. Then my stomach dropped, not violently, not dramatically, just that slow, sinking feeling that tells you something is wrong before you understand why. Later that night, when the house was quiet and the kids were asleep, I asked Tom about it. Carefully, softly. I didn't accuse him. I didn't want conflict. I wanted reassurance. He said no, not slowly, not thoughtfully, just no. I asked again, using different words, giving him space to correct himself, to explain, to tell the truth if he had misspoken. Same answer, and that was the moment something shifted. Not because I knew the truth yet, but because of how easily he denied it. There was no hesitation, no uncertainty. He looked straight at me and rewrote reality without blinking. That night, my body refused to rest. My mind kept replaying his voice, his certainty. The calmness of the lie stared at the ceiling while he slept beside me, and something about that felt deeply wrong. The next morning, I opened the door camera app. We rarely used it. It was something Tom had installed for peace of mind, for safety. I never imagined it would be the thing that took mine away. I scrolled back to Friday, and there it was, a car pulling up, a woman stepping out, Tom opening the door and letting her inside. I watched it once, then again, then again. Like repetition might soften it, like maybe I'd misunderstood. I hadn't. When I confronted him, I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I showed him the screen and waited. I expected panic, guilt, something human. Instead, he minimized it. He said it was brief. He said it didn't matter. He said he didn't tell me because I would make it into a problem. That sentence stayed with me because what he was really saying was that my reaction mattered more than his actions. From that moment on, nothing felt stable. I started noticing everything. The way he held his phone, the pauses before simple answers, the tightness in my chest when he left the room. I hated the person I was becoming. Suspicious, hyper-aware, always listening for something I couldn't name. But once trust cracks, it doesn't stop cracking on its own. We tried therapy. He agreed quickly, almost too quickly. He apologized. He said the right words, but they felt practiced, like lines he had memorized instead of truths he had discovered. Every time he said it didn't mean anything, my body reacted before my mind could. If it meant nothing, why hide it? That question followed me everywhere, and slowly something darker started to form inside me. I realized I wasn't afraid of cheating. I was afraid of living with someone who could lie calmly and then justify it. Someone who could look at me while I was exhausted, vulnerable, still healing, and decide that honesty was optional. And that realization changed everything. Because once you see that, you can't unsee it. And that's when I understood something terrifying. This wasn't the end of what I would discover. It was only the beginning. After that, nothing felt the same. Not the house, not the silence, not even the way he said my name. I tried to act normal at first. I told myself I was overreacting. That postpartum hormones distort everything. That exhaustion turns small things into monsters. I wanted to believe there was a reasonable explanation waiting somewhere, but my body didn't believe it. Every time Tom picked up his phone, something tightened in my chest. Every time he left the room, my thoughts followed him. I started noticing pauses in conversations, slight changes in tone, the way he answered questions too quickly, like he'd prepared the response in advance. I hated that version of myself. I had never been suspicious before, never needed proof, never felt the urge to check, to verify, to replay moments in my head. But once trust is damaged, your mind doesn't rest. It searches for patterns. It fills silence with questions. It turns imagination into evidence. And the worst part was this. Tom didn't change. He was still calm, still polite, still the same man on the surface. He made breakfast. He asked how my day was. He kissed me on the head like nothing had shifted. That's when I understood something painful. He wasn't scared of losing me. He was annoyed by my discomfort, and that realization settled into my chest like weight. We continued therapy. Session after session, I explained what the lie had done to me, how it wasn't about the woman, how it wasn't about jealousy or control. It was about safety, about reality, about knowing that the person next to you isn't quietly editing the truth. Tom listened. He nodded. He apologized again. But his apologies never went deeper than words. He didn't ask what I needed. He didn't ask how to rebuild trust. He didn't ask what had broken inside me. He just wanted things to feel normal again. And I couldn't give him that. Because normal doesn't return when something fundamental has been exposed. At night, lying next to him, I felt more alone than I had ever felt by myself. I listened to his breathing and wondered how someone could feel so familiar and so distant at the same time. I replayed the camera footage in my head more times than I want to admit, not because I wanted to torture myself, but because that moment had become a symbol, the moment he chose to lie, the moment he decided I didn't deserve the truth. the moment my sense of safety quietly disappeared. A few weeks later, Tom told me he wanted to go away for the weekend, a family event, a few days, nothing traumatic. But something inside me collapsed the moment he said it. I didn't imagine cheating. I imagined silence. I imagined being alone with my thoughts. I imagined my mind spiraling again, replaying everything I didn't know. That night, while he packed, I stood in the doorway and felt tears rise without permission. I asked him not to go, not because I wanted to control him, but because I didn't trust what his absence would do to me. He hesitated, and in that hesitation I saw everything clearly. He stayed, but not because he understood. He stayed because it was easier than dealing with the fallout. The next day, the resentment was quiet but present, in his tone, in his distance, in the way he avoided my eyes, and something inside me hardened. I realized I didn't want reassurance anymore. I didn't want explanations. I didn't want promises. I wanted clarity. That evening when the house was quiet, I told him the truth. If he ever lied to me again, I was done. Not as a threat, not as drama, as a boundary. He didn't argue. He didn't promise. It wouldn't happen again. He just went quiet. And that silence answered everything. Because people who understand the damage they've done don't stay silent. They ask how to fix it. Life continued, because it always does. Kids still needed me. Days still passed. Meals were cooked. Laundry folded. On the outside, nothing changed. On the inside, everything had. I stopped asking myself if I was too sensitive. I stopped wondering if I was imagining things. I stopped apologizing for needing honesty. I began to see patterns clearly. Avoidance, minimization, comfort with half-truths. And once you see those patterns, you can't unsee them. Tom tried in small ways. He checked in more often. He offered his phone once, like transparency could be handed over in a single gesture. But it was too late for symbolic fixes. Trust doesn't rebuild through gestures. It rebuilds through consistency. And consistency was exactly what had been missing. One night, I sat alone in the living room while everyone else slept. The house was quiet in that deep, heavy way it gets after midnight. I realized something important then. I wasn't waiting for proof anymore. I already had it. The proof wasn't the woman. It wasn't the footage. It wasn't even the lie. The proof was how easily he lived with it. That was the moment I stopped trying to convince him to understand me and started understanding myself. This story doesn't end with shouting. It doesn't end with dramatic exits or perfect closure. It ends quietly, with me learning to trust my instincts again, with me understanding that wanting honesty is not asking for too much, with me realizing that safety isn't something you beg for. Some nights I still think about that door opening on the camera footage, not because I'm stuck in the past, but because it reminds me of the moment everything changed. The moment I stopped trusting the version of reality someone else was trying to sell me and started trusting my own. Because the hardest part of betrayal isn't what happens. It's what you learn about the person standing next to you. And once you learn that, you don't forget it.